Hello, my name is Austin Wallace. I'm the International Affairs Officer for the World Federation for Animals. The WFA, for whom I work, is a global coalition of civil society organizations who are placed together to help support advances in animal protection and related issues in international policy and agreements. So, this is our presentation on movement building and global animal welfare. So, we collaborate together as member organizations to try to work together to bring animal welfare to the forefront of the United Nations process in New York, but also in Geneva, in Nairobi, and in Rome, and a variety of other locations around the world. We work together to bring this on a variety of different policy fronts because we believe that animal welfare is cross-sectional, goes through multiples of the Sustainable Development Goals. And we collaborate on this together by using a variety of working groups and working bodies where we meet and we discuss to come up with policy that's able to direct animal welfare organizations together under one streamlined approach. One of those organizations that we work with is ICAM, the International Companion Animal Management Coalition. Thank you for having us on this as well. Thank you so much. And we work a lot together, especially on SDG 9 and 11. So, collaboration as a general standpoint makes effectiveness. It helps influence international agreements to benefit animals. So, as I just said, it does help when we all work together to come up with policies that are now streamlined so that when we bring it to the United Nations and to member states at those UN bodies, they feel that it is something that's unified, that's strong, that's presentable and legitimate. And that's really important overall for the movement because that helps allow us to understand where we can all work together to come to a particular animal welfare clause in one resolution or one in another. So by coordinating that global policy, we've been able to achieve certain results in the past. One of them is the Nexus resolution at the United Nations Environment Assembly in Nairobi. We achieved it as one of the first ever UN resolutions acknowledging animal welfare's contribution to the Sustainable Development Goals. As I just said, we believe that animal welfare is cross-sectional. It crosses through multiple SDGs. And that was what was important about this resolution, was that it paid attention to that. It noted that. And that's really important that it's now been presented there in Nairobi. By coordinating on global advocacy, we are able to work together towards coming up with a general scope for our global advocacy changes on animal welfare. And this includes in UN resolutions that emphasize the protection of animals and part of climate change. So we have this on resolutions at UNFCCC, which is the United Nations Forum on Climate Change. And then we also have this in New York at the Convention on Biological Diversity negotiations, which both happen in New York and then at the CBD locations around the world. And then we also have this in a variety of other locations around our planet. And we work together with various UN bodies to try and come up with language that can be presented in those UN documents. So it's actually really exciting work. Furthermore, one of the first agreements in the world to prevent pandemics was achieved called the WHO Pandemic Agreement. And this has now required countries to address drivers of infectious diseases at the human-animal-environment interface, basically the One Health approach. And that has meant that countries, as well as UN organizations, have to work together. So as I've just said, with the Nexus resolution with UNEA, the climate resolution at UNFCCC and CBD, and now we have this at the WHO Pandemic Agreement. And now we're also working on UN General Assembly declarations and FAO resolutions that will hopefully affirm the importance of One Health to tackle antimicrobial resistance in a variety of different bodies. And we work together with these various UN bodies to try and achieve that as soon as possible. And we're really proud of the work that we've been able to do to get it there. With all of this being said, I find it's really important to talk about the dozens and dozens of member organizations that are a part of WFA that work together every year to achieve animal welfare at an international stage and achieve protections for animals at a global level. They work together to find new pathways, whether it was climate change or health, peace and security, development, trade, finance, and any of these resolutions to help build a better world for animals and for everyone. And I think that's really, really important. I think that's core to WFA's goals. And I think ICAM is a major part of that, and I think the work that we're able to do now, especially on SDG 11, has been really wonderful, and I think that that's presented by this whole group as well. So thank you so much, and I'm now going to pass it on to James.
Thank you, Austin. But of course, we need to be even more effective as a movement. We're on a journey to getting there, and I'm sure we will. But it is a journey that we need to keep pushing on. We need to be more effective as a movement. We need to have even greater ambition, even greater efficacy, both to fight the forces against animals, but also to change the world, to tackle the crises that are going to affect animals, to embody the concern for animals that people share around the world, and to get animals to be a global priority in policy making and behaviour. And in order to be effective, three things we certainly need are structure. We need to be deliberate about how we collaborate. We need to have a clear purpose. Why are we coming together? Why are we collaborating? We need to have the relationships and the culture of altruism and trust and inclusion and ambition. And we need to have those as shared values that we expect and encourage in each other. That's what makes collaboration effective. And that raises the question then of how to collaborate. And actually, we need to balance some of those concerns because we are coming at it as individuals or organisations. So to balance how much we can just go off on our own quickly, autonomously, and for our own brand versus, no, we're going to have a much bigger, persistent, longer term, impact-focused journey. And actually, we also need to balance how quickly we can develop as a movement towards greater collaboration. It's accelerating, but we can't push too fast too soon. And actually, there's an interesting idea of thinking, well, maybe we don't necessarily need full bells and whistles collaboration every time. Actually, depending on how far towards impact our ambition runs, but also how big a scale, how big a scope we are trying to have on that impact of those activities. That depends what we need to do. So at one end, and these are all super valuable, at one end, if we're trying to get ourselves and colleagues best connected, then actually we don't need to have very big formal structures all the time. We need spaces to convene people. If we're just trying to communicate so we know what each other is doing or communicating some learning, well, again, we need some bit more structure now. But again, it can be intermittent, it can be very task and finish. And the same applies for what we can call coordination and cooperation. If we're thinking about particular predetermined projects with a particular outcome or just an output, then actually we don't need massive structure around that. We can have sign-ons to a letter. It's only really when we want to have big, uphill, long-term, major, transformational impact that we need all the structures of collaboration. And particularly as we move up, we need that increase in effort, that increase in persistence, because collaboration does take more effort. It has more impact, but it does take more effort. We need greater diversity. I would always say as diverse as you can within your core values, but otherwise to be as diverse, at least to reflect your stakeholders and targets. And we need greater collaborative spirit. And I just wanted to put a note to leadership. This can be formal leaders, but it might be anyone in the organisation pushing that engagement and collaboration to bring in that spirit, to make sure you're contributing strategically and actively, to get that value creation collectively, as well as getting credit for each person and organisation, but focusing on that value creation.